Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre and I'm in the south of England in a little town that shall remain nameless for privacy reasons. And this week's show comes to you from this town. The reason I'm here is a longer form documentary within the YouTube series. But this may actually be 60 minutes long because it has a lot of protagonists and a lot of different storylines, and it's about embodiment and placemaking in Second Life. I'm here joined at this illustrious table where I, in typical Draxter form, ambush people with recording devices unannounced. We're joined also by a young person who just shook her head that she finds this possibly not ethical. She hasn't given consent to being aired.
I give consent.
Okay, she just gave consent, you heard it. I'm here with Varahi Lush. B. Flynn, whose last name I forgot.
Grutz.
B. Flynn Grutz. G-R-U-T-Z?
Groot. Yeah.
Oh.
Just one note.
It's Dutch, but I pronounce it in English.
Oh. And I'm going to call you Misha because you're not active in Second Life, but you know a lot about Second Life. Why?
Because my mum, Varahi, runs a companion's club in Second Life.
And she is also, like you said earlier, there's a lot of people, management involved, and you overhear a lot of things.
Gossip, yep.
Also problem solving, maybe. Because there's no separation in the home when you work from home and when you do these things. How would you explain, Misha, you're 16. Do people sometimes ask you, or does it ever come up that your mother's active in Second Life or anybody? Are you put in a position where you have to explain what it is, and then how would you explain it?
I am put in that position sometimes when mum's got a meeting or something and my friends are over and they ask where she is, but not often. Other than that.
How do you explain it to your peers? Because
that is hard. A lot of people don't understand it. Lots of people, like I said earlier, call it a game, and I don't think it really is. It's more of a social platform. A lot of people think it's weird as well, just because they're.
Why?
I'm not sure why.
But in your generation, everybody's a gamer. Don't they understand digital things?
It's because it's actual people rather than a game that's been coded, I think.
Right. Just like nameless zombies that you can mow down.
Yeah, basically.
Also, I can imagine that, like if I was going to go upstairs to play a game, I wouldn't have the attitude of someone who's running an office.
No.
Well, but
I often just say that she just runs an online school because that's actually taken seriously.
that is pretty good.
And true.
Yeah.
Just an online school with really good graphics.
Some of the jaded gamers will say it's not good graphics. That's exactly what they would say. But I don't care. This is a Second Life podcast.
Yeah, these are people who find it perfectly acceptable to communicate in plain text. Nothing makes sense.
No, it's true.
Well, this is interesting, actually. Misha, you would say that the difficulty in explaining it is really that you communicate with other people versus a lot of non-player characters who are coded into the game. So I guess when people see Second Life, they still think that why do you have a serious why are you pretending to have a serious conversation with this other person, right? While they're like looking at it, wait a minute, isn't that a non-player character?
I don't think they know that it's another person, but I don't think they kind of understand socializing in a way. Like you think you're there to achieve a goal and to play a game, but it's just a social platform.
In the sense that they think like, why would you socialize in that? Is that the thing?
Yeah, maybe. I think I think they just don't get the point, really, of just because why would you want to socialize on
On a computer.
on a computer with someone that sometimes doesn't look like you, or this avatar, when you can actually talk to people or play a game which has a goal in it.
This is incredibly valuable. This is a focus group that I think what you're pointing out is interesting. Do you think that because of your age, at your age, it's normal, or it should be normal to maybe go outside and hang out with friends? And is it a stigma when you're not doing that? Is that also something where people look at like, why wouldn't you go out with us to the youth center or something?
At the same time, I don't think there is a lot of socialising in, like, we see each other at school, and sometimes I go shopping with my friends, sometimes we have parties, but it's only recently when because I've just changed schools, my whole friendship group has split up, so it's only recently we've actually been coming together to hang out more.
The point of it.
But because people see each other at school, and they go to parties and things, they don't make time to just meet up.
I think people often think that their lifestyle is a lot more valid than it is. You know, so then they see a different lifestyle and they don't really tend to do the thinking about it. They just go, does not compute, full stop. You know?
The other day, one of our guild acolytes, who's quite young, was telling me that she thought my kids
Briefly,
were
sorry
weird
to
for having
interrupt.
a party.
Define the guild real quick for the listeners.
Companions Guild, derived from Firefly TV series. A guild of people skilled in social arts, professionals.
And practicing together.
Also, in our context, a group of people who learn together, educational group. One of these people who is actually quite young, maybe not a teenager, I told her my kids in real life were having a party, and she said that she thought they were weird because they should be out in the town. So weird is such a vague term.
Yeah, it is.
Like Varahi said, you if you look at yourself as the norm, then it gets complicated.
Yeah. Why can't everybody be male like me?
That's a thought.
I know, Don.
That happens a lot, though, doesn't it? It's just unspoken.
I'm not so sure. Old white males in America are very outspoken that they feel marginalized. I don't know why, though. They have it so
Because
hard.
they insist.
Yeah, I insist on
Feeling
being other
feeling
people are marginalised, so why can't I be? No. I want to join the group of marginalised people.
That's what it is, really. The guild in Second Life, where is it? Are there more locations, or is there just one main
We
location?
started out pretty much just with one island, but when it got to the point where we'd have a big party at the end of term and we'd have too many people to fill, and the sim would just fill up. That kind of happened around the same time that more role-play sims were asking us to have a companion house on their sim. So now we have them on. We have the Companions Guild on various sims, which I prefer because I don't feel it's a location-based thing. I feel it's like a social phenomena, so it doesn't really matter where it is. I like the idea that it doesn't exist in central place.
So that it is embedded in existing communities in Second Life.
Yeah.
Totally. Cappuccino?
Yeah, cappuccino.
Hot
Black
drink?
tea.
Black
Yeah.
tea?
You want a drink?
Yeah,
The reason why I'm asking also Misha these questions
Yeah.
is, of course, because
It's more interesting.
No, not at all. No, everybody is interesting. But you live in a different world with your peers. And what I find fascinating is how younger people perceive Second Life. And what you just said is interesting because it's the same issues that my generation has with understanding what it is. So in other words, I feel there's an overlap that these generations have where they still don't, and one assumes that younger people would understand it better.
Yeah, but
Because they're called digital natives or whatnot.
it's a big world, isn't it? I mean,
Well, but the main thing seems to me, having investigated this for so many years, is the problem that people have with Second Life and virtual worlds.
Oh, you're beautiful.
Oh, look at that! I should film this one.
Oh, you are beautiful. 綺麗だね。じゃあ素敵よ。
my Japanese is improving gradually.
本当？本当？
Yeah, I need more.
Varahi is in a wonderful kimono, and I'm not sure if that's her Japanese teacher or who that was. See, such are the things of in real life. Who was that?
Miho. Miho has helped me a lot with when I've hosted Japanese style events, and she does good cooking and things, doesn't she, Misha?
She does.
Yeah.
She does very good cooking.
So.
You are not a shut-in. I mean, again, I just want
Thank
to
you.
inform the listener. No. I mean, it's
Yeah.
we have in this documentary that's coming up a lot of people who are self-described shut-ins. I don't think that they don't add any judgment to that term.
No.
They just say, I have, for whatever reason, I don't have the opportunity. I'm not going out. I'm really confined, oftentimes because of a physical disability. And Second Life is literally a second life for many people.
Yes.
For you, it doesn't seem to be, or
For me, because I never know when I'm going to have a seizure, the moment matters a lot. So I do tend to push myself out there more, to be honest with you, more than my confidence would normally do, because I want to make the moment matter, because I don't know when I'm going to have a seizure and suddenly become like some, just a living blob that can't think anymore. So that has an effect on the way I live my life. I've got to take advantage of this space. It's like with Miho there, if I think, it's not relevant to talk to her now because, I'm doing something else, next time I see her, I may be having a seizure. And then I can't talk to her. I can't communicate. I can't express the fact that I care about her. So I have to make the most of those things. So it's not so much. I think I'm actually quite a shy person in myself, but in order to not feel cast down when I have several seizures in a row, I have to make a point of pushing myself forward when I'm not having a seizure.
you're seizing the day.
Yeah.
I want to remind listeners that the reason I'm here is because of a feature-length documentary within the Drax File series that will be called Our Digital Lives. It'll be out in March 2018, but we will start with little teasers in a week or so. And I'm here with Varahi Lash, who is a high priestess in Second Life. Do you introduce your mom like that too sometimes, or you avoid that? Potential weird. It's like, this is my mom. She's a high priestess.
I just usually introduce my mum as my mum. I don't usually introduce her unless
Young
my
people
friends
aren't
are
normally
coming round.
interested in what other people.
Well, but maybe it's only boys, because I was going to ask if Poppy ever does that, because Khalil sometimes just for shits and giggles would introduce me, would bring friends over, and I would be like editing some machinima, and then he would say, "This is my dad. He plays with imaginary friends in an online world." Yeah, hi, Dad. Just so that it's in good humor.
What you felt socially.
I tend to be quite tucked away because I'm on the laptop in the bedroom, which, as you can, it's on the 2 floors up. So
Yeah, it seems, if my friends come around when she's downstairs and around, then it's just normal. It's just my mum.
Yeah.
I do often say that she has epilepsy because that's something that my friends need to know.
Yeah.
But that's...
I don't need to know that I'm a pride priestess.
No, not particularly.
They need to. Yeah, but there we are again with the definition. Isn't that interesting? In the physical world, it's required that your daughter tells her friends that you have epilepsy. In the virtual world, we would not be required, or you would not be required to disclose this. Why? And I know you've done hours and hours upon interviews with me, and I'm asking
The question
on
again.
video. I'm asking the question again, but it does bear repeating. Why is it not necessary in Second Life to disclose it, or is it because you do a mix of it? You write something in your profile, and so how do you deal with it
I
with
write
the
something
disability?
in my profile because I don't have the social flexibility. Just like I was saying about Miho just then, I don't have that flexibility, social flexibility, in Second Life either, because it's the same me communicating in the same way. So I have it on my profile so people. Various reasons, but so people will understand if I start acting a bit weird, and also so they don't kind of target me as somebody who, is worth developing a relationship with, because unless they've got real commitment, it's not worth it. They'll just mess their minds up.
Right, you also put that in. You put that in also that you're not interested in dating and stuff.
Yeah, because it's just
strong terms.
confusing for people. If they try to date me, they just get confused. And also the other thing is I'd like as a hidden disability, I want epilepsy to be more visible. So actually I'm kind of almost communicating it in part. It's sort of a bit of a political thing, just to go, I'm epileptic. I might be a high priestess, and that's not just for epilepsy, but also to encourage people. I might be a high priestess, but that doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean that I've had to, work hard to get to where I have. But you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to, strive, in a really difficult way to make a difference.
You're doing advocacy, awareness.
Yeah, that's important, I think. Because, like I say, it's important for epileptics, but it's also important for everyone. Because very often you think to yourself, "Oh, I'll do that," but if I did it, I may not do it perfectly. Or
yes.
So you come
black
to tea.
tea.
There.
Black tea, please. Yes.
And
I'm in England. They drink black tea
chai,
all
yeah.
day long.
here you go.
Is my bus all right?
cup.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just because we're on the radio and in England, they drink tea. You won't believe this. It's unbelievable. My American audience, they raise their children on tea.
Yes, and it's been made using boiling water poured onto the tea.
Directly.
It is
I
not
could rant
brought
for
separately
hours about
off the boil. Tea is not tea if it's made with water that is off the boil. It's just some sort of swill.
Ah, okay, explain. So it has to be...
It's very simple. It was expressed beautifully in a poem by Ginger Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Pour boiling water over the tea. Must be boiling.
Over the tea bag. The tea
on
bag
the
has
tea.
to already be
Yeah,
in
that's
the
right.
cup.
You tea bag, put the tea bag in or the tea into the pot, and then you put boiling water on it. It's not good if it's late. If it's later than boiling, if it's cooled down, it doesn't work. It needs to be boiling water. That's why all the hotels in the world that bring you a pot of boiled water that is too cool already are not giving you tea.
And with the bag separately, basically, you're putting it in. So that makes no sense to you.
That's not right.
No, they should make. If somebody's going to make the tea, they should make the tea. If they don't want to make the tea, they should bring you a kettle and plug it in somewhere so that you can see it boil, and then you can make your tea. You cannot make tea with unboiling water any more than you can make it with cold water. Very similar.
All right. You're listening to the Drax Files Hour with tea making special edition.
Now, this is the right way for a caterer to do it. They bring you a pot of tea that they have made correctly.
So this is an interesting thing with the companion skill, because in canon, in the episodes of Firefly, Inara always served tea at the beginning of her encounters. And it was a chance for her to, get to know the client, and just sort of settle down and relax before they, got on with whatever they were going to get on with. So, we practice the tea ceremony, and it's interesting teaching my students how important it is to take the time to do something simple. The steps and how they can ground you in you can be grounded in each step of a process if you let yourself, if you just slow down and let yourself.
The process is important.
And the process is not just important, it's also delightful.
I never watched Firefly, I told you this before, and I have to now, I guess, for further research. What is important about, outside of Firefly in general, and people can research like what the companion guild means in the context, but what is important in companionship in general? I mean, why do we as human beings need companionship?
I think because if we can have aware relationships where we're actually, load of pigeons, beautiful. If we actually can have genuine relationships where we're actually meeting each other properly.
It's actually spiced chai and got confused.
Oh, good.
There's more drinks.
Then we can actually see ourselves reflected in the other, because we are genuinely having an exchange. And I think it's important to see yourself reflected in things. It makes a heck of a difference if you live in a house without a mirror, for example. But it's people are mirrors too. So I think relationships are important for that reason.
So companionship has nothing to do with making people feel less lonely, or a little bit, or how is that intertwined?
I think so. I think
Also
it's
in
related.
Second Life,
I think it's related because if we're not echoed, it's like if we just say something and all we hear is echoes, and we feel there's no proper feedback. There's no other perspective, so it's hard to kind of feel confident in your own existence, I think, when that's the case.
Why is that important in Second Life? I mean, in Second Life, and this is interesting because, again, in this larger project that I'm working on right now, I've interviewed people within the group. This is a National Science Foundation research, and it's happening on ethnographia, and it's run by Tom Bukowski and Tredi Felicimo. And there are people in the ethnographia group of people with disabilities who would say that they have not found friendship in Second Life. But friendship is something different than companionship, because I was asking people, isn't it easier in Second Life to make friends? And some people would say no, it isn't, and that surprised me.
Well, I'm not sure that companionship and friendship is different. I think it's the same, and I think when I teach my companions, mainly we focus on kind of understanding their limits and partly then who they are, so they can be a true friend or a true companion to someone because they have confidence in themselves and who they are, and the gift that is then to give to somebody else. But I think it's important in Second Life because I think a lot of people, it's like people relate to Second Life in different ways, and some people are like logging on for a quick experience, I don't know, every 6 weeks or something, and they expect experience to happen now. So
right now, I have like 30 minutes or an hour.
So this place is amazing. Give me my experience, and maybe they get an experience, maybe they don't. But if you're there wanting to live a life, it's a bit like in this town. If you just do a quick shop, then you're not going to meet any of the residents. You're just going to go. You can say, I met Totnes, but you can't really say that you met anybody. You just met Totnes. So I think
it depends how you go in. That's a really
good
good point. I mean, I'm the kind of person, obviously, I think people know that by now, that I go to the Morrisons and I start a conversation with the guy who is filling the shelves, and it's actually quite enlightening.
Yes. It's nice to communicate with people.
Yeah.
But I think that the trouble in Second Life is that who have the same attitude need to find each other, and that's not always easy because an inner attitude.
It's not just
might not
wearing
even
the same
know.
colour shirt.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
doesn't
Yeah,
work
or we're all
externally.
into ponies. It needs to be the same sort of inner attitude.
Because we have people with all kinds of external interests, don't we?
Yeah.
Gamers and academics and seriously disabled people and writers and housewives. And from the outside, they don't look like...
They all look different. The members
they
of
look
our community.
heterogeneous.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring Beeflin into the conversation after he blows his nose.
Yeah, since I butted in and then butted out to blow
Yeah.
my nose, I should be brought in at...
Yeah, and listeners can extract this as a sound effect and they can sample it in Second Life.
Yeah.
Blowing nose sound effect, or other people
I hope that
maybe
doesn't
working on a
become
radio
famous.
play.
Oh yeah, beefling. That's a meme, isn't it?
No, not the blowing the nose meme.
Beeflin, do you think that... So, okay, first of all, how is it living with Varahi with this disability? What are you... It's interesting for me to observe. This is a wonderful partnership where you take over certain duties as it relates to, for example, the guild management, which is kind of a big job. So if you want, you don't have to be like detailed, but like something comes up and Varahi delegates something because of the limitations she has with the disability, perhaps, and then you deal with it. So how does that work day to day?
Mostly I have fixed things that are delegated, like the calendar is the number one. I'm very much responsible for the calendar, and also I tend to be the curator of some of the high-level meetings that happen regularly. So I gather the companions together or have a meeting with the priestesses, and that allows her not to have to process a lot of conversation. I can then bring back the conclusions from those meetings, and maybe other people can bring them to her as well, but she doesn't have to process the whole meeting.
Is that a hierarchy that people in the guild accept because it's built that way, or do you have to tell them, Varahi has these issues where she is delegating this to me? That's fascinating to me. Like, is this a hierarchy? Like, let's just say the military, it's normal that I go to this person rather than this person if I have grievances or something. But in Second Life, it's more informal unless you create the role play framework.
Well, the job of Thane of the Calendar, as I call it, is not a dignity. It's a poison chalice. So nobody else would want to do it. You'd have to be a nitpicking geek to want to do it.
Misha, is it sometimes? Would you like to exchange these parents to normal parents? Sometimes,
No,
just like for Christmas.
No way.
Just for one day.
No way. No way. No, they're actually fun,
Yeah.
and they actually I think I've learned more than I would have done if I had quote unquote normal parents.
It's been interesting because, of course, I've been a high priestess for about, was it 8 years?
2009 spring, so that would be 7 and a bit.
7 and a bit. So I've been a high priestess for 7 and a bit. And obviously, when I started, Misha is much younger, so there's certain things that I wouldn't talk to her about. So as she's got older, our conversations obviously change according to what she wants to talk about and what she's going through. And then my experience in Second Life, sometimes I haven't never hidden from her that I do Second Life. So then, sometimes I've been able to bring in my experience of working with people in Second Life to sort of help her with things like, I don't know, relationship stuff and that, which has been good, isn't it? We've been able to sort of have that resource. It's been good for the both of us.
8.5. Did you see that? That was the function of the Thane of the Calendar there. Immediately come up with this incredibly quick answer with this beautiful clock-like whirring mind with all these little things marked off. Get the answer in really quick, satisfy the questioner, and then spend the next 90 seconds realising he's got it wrong and working it out properly. 8.5.
Beeflin, I interrupted you to get in this cheap joke about normal versus not normal. Where were we in the linear conversation?
Oh, you were asking about fitting in the hierarchy. Well, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't stand out amongst the companions. I will call the meetings, but then there are people who call all sorts of meetings who have that delegated. So I call that meeting, but then I don't have to turn up and I don't have to moderate it. Or I moderate it in a way which is that if nobody says anything, I say, how's your real life weather, or what happened at that event the other day, or
Remember
something.
that you exist.
I'll do the mummy thing where I'm not the chairman of the pirate club, but I am the person who maybe takes responsibility for making sure the pirate club doesn't do nothing.
What is really interesting is that any community, I hear a lot about people complain about like, I can't get a successful community off the ground in Second Life, whatever it is, like anything. It could be sci-fi, could be real life non-profits about helping blind people, could be something connected to a television show or a book or something. Or a religious group. People complain about that they can't get it going. My co-host, who is not with us, Joe Yardley from 1920s Berlin, has been very successful keeping this together, but it takes an enormous amount of time to manage it. We went over that, but also how do you deal with diverse communities in real life? Like you said earlier, they come from all walks of life, but they share this one common passion or obsession. So they come together, but there may be grievances. There may be people not getting along. In the virtual realm, how do you deal with this? Like in America, they have the human resources officer in the office where you can go and say, "This dude is bugging me. What are we gonna do?"
We've set up if somebody feels that they really are a member of one of the companion houses, and some people don't particularly attach themselves, although they are allocated. But when people do feel they're a part of it, they will go to the house companion who manages the house, the way that you would go to the teacher who manages the house of your boarding school or something like that. Then the priestesses are a higher level of that. There are particularly acolytes who do have a lot of troubles, will tell the priestesses about it. So it actually works pretty well. There's always going to be people who don't voice their grievances and just go rotten. That's people.
The other thing as well is one thing that I think is important with grievances is that people are changing all the time. And very often people.
What do you mean?
Well, when you if you say you had an argument with Richard last week, you think to yourself, then when you think of Richard, you think, oh, he's quite an argumentative.
He wore that green shirt that hurts my eyes. He's that guy in a green shirt.
Are we talking about the same Richard? How do you read my mind?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go into the fact that I've been spying on you for years.
Yeah.
But
it makes you have an image that he's the guy in a green shirt every
whereas
day,
actually,
where he's not.
He's not. He may have changed. So if you hold on to the fact that Richard is an argumentative person, when you see Richard next, you're more likely to have an argument with him. So I try to point that out to my members, and also I do say to them, I do encourage everybody to mute. I know people find that really hard. They think, oh, that's personally horrible, but I'm actually like, even if somebody's really, say that they've done nothing wrong apart from lose their temper with you, and they get stuck. Your communication gets stuck in a cycle if you're not careful.
It helps you too.
And it helps you, and it helps them to mute them, just to kind of take a step back for a few days.
This is Varahi gospel. It's muting. People regard muting as an outrageous act of terrorism. But what it really is, it's a button that Linden Labs give you, and you're allowed to press it, and it doesn't ring in the head office. It's your button. And the Varahi gospel is that you are allowed to use that. Yep. When you just don't want to hear something, don't hear it. It's fine.
You don't have to judge that person either when you're muting them. You don't have to think, oh, they're a horrible person, so I'll mute them. You can actually think to yourself, I can't cope with their special kind of nonsense right now.
So the temporary, this I never thought about. It's really well put.
Yeah.
Because it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, it's not you, it's me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I put that in my profile.
Yeah.
on my away message, my busy message.
Yeah, it's not you, it's me.
Hey, Drexter, and then it comes back, it's not you, it's me.
Wow, that would be a good thing.
That'd be really good.
Message. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because people, hey, how are you? You wanna hang out? No, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah. I have to do that a lot. I mean, I think all of these things help because I've had to learn to manage social situations. then I've had to think about it, and then that helps me to help other people to think about it too.
Yeah. But to continue to answer your question, despite the fact that in theory I have a position where I might wield authority, in practice I don't. And I don't want to, because it's very interesting to defer to your wife and just think, this genius just needs people to support her vision. She doesn't need somebody to go, well, I'm the husband, so I'm partner to all this, I do the architecture, I do the accounting, I think I should be written up in the books as an equal. I don't need that crap. I can just be a person,
When also, when we came into Second Life to begin with, we actually didn't partner for a very long time, because I've noticed...
Why?
I noticed quite early on that people who are partnered, they tend to... people project on them that they're living in this monogamy-centric world where everything that they do in their relationships with others, is under the scrutiny of the other. And I wanted us to be able to explore Second Life in a wider way than that.
Well, and also we had a head start because to begin with we were blessed with only having one computer, so we couldn't even log in at the same time.
Yeah, that was quite funny though, because we got in trouble because we didn't realise it was somebody else's house.
That
we did this really sweet thing that
What happened?
Well, we found this lovely place. It's called Tatara Temple. So we thought, well, temples.
Green Tara Temple.
Yeah. So we thought, well, that sounds like an open place because temples tend to be like that.
Public.
So anyway, there was a bed in it. So what would happen is that he would do his session in Second Life, and then he'd go to the bed and he'd go to sleep on the bed, and then I'd wake up on that bed and I'd do my session, and I'd go back onto that bed and I'd go to sleep on that bed. So it was like
But you had the same avatar then?
No, we had different avatars.
Just went to the same place to log off.
Yeah, we went to the same
That's
bed
nice.
to log on.
Yeah, that's not... Isn't it... Oh, this leads me to these types of rituals.
But we never met.
We never met, no.
No, you reincarnated in these different bodies and these different embodiments.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting.
And you
because-
also told me earlier, that's going to be in the film, how you were working on your avatar and then kind of like worked on it together a little bit, or gave each other like
we gave each other tips because we were trying to make avatars that would look like us.
We did a big design session to try and make them facsimiles, and mine ended up looking more like me than hers looks like her. I don't know why. I did try. It's probably because I don't have the same talent.
but it was funny because it was funny to sit there together and go, no, darling, your chin is more like that.
Yeah. It was very interesting with the. I mean, it is a lovely modelling kit, that you can even get the face to look right. But it is interesting that some parts you have to distort quite severely to get it to look like you, because it won't pull in the right direction. You can't get it to pull that way, so you have to pull it that way instead. Particularly the chin line on mine is like it's as cut and a high back as it'll go, because that's the only way it looks like me. And actually, it's good I have long hair. Otherwise, you'd notice it's like a
You chose to make the avatars how you look in the physical world. Some people choose not to do that. What I find fascinating, I've been to many Second Life conventions. There is something, even if somebody in Second Life looks very, very different, if you meet them, if you interacted with them in Second Life and then you meet them in the physical world, you know immediately who they are. It just sort of beams out of them. Even I'm not talking about interacting with them and recognizing them by their voice. I had this many times. I'm looking at someone and the avatar shines through. Why?
Really
I think the simple explanation for me is like, okay, the avatar is the creation of this person. Now I'm meeting God, and He made His son in His
image.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's funny because when people debate this, and I've been people have said to me, why not kind of just make yours any way you want, and then that's the first point I was challenged with the choice, because when we made ours as facsimiles, we didn't even consider any choice. We just wanted to do it. It wasn't from a list of possible things to do. We found it interesting. I mean, actually, it is interesting because it's so detailed. To make a copy of yourself is just really interesting sculpture.
Well, also,
sculpture, isn't it?
We are lucky because we are lucky because we have a really good relationship, and it's a very close one because he's my carer. So I think probably that affected it too. When we went into Second Life, we didn't think, let's be fantasy for somebody else, because I know I'm his fantasy and he knows he's mine. So we were just like, well, that will make sense like that.
You made another. I want you to make this again. This point, if you will, about. Oh, you got just an appreciative look. You have a kimono on right now.
Yeah, I have a kimono on,
We
so
talked about this.
Japanese
Oh, you have
people
a-
notice me.
Yeah.
And I love Japanese people, so
Yeah.
I see one of the reasons why I dress up in kimono is so I can have relationships with Japanese people. Because, yeah,
But that's what I would do. What people told me that they do in Second Life.
right.
Because the avatar is a way to get in touch with communities that you find interest in. So it's
Yes.
like a political slogan on a T-shirt. Or now I'm wearing a Second Life T-shirt. Of course, nobody talks to me because nobody knows what Second Life is.
Yeah.
But that would be very similar, right? You create an avatar a certain way. Or the tiny community. If you meet another tiny, of course, then you
Yeah.
immediately have visual
Yes,
cues that you're part of the same. But now you're not a Japanese person, but you pay homage to the culture by wearing the kimono. And we had a Japanese woman just come by with appreciating that you do this.
Yeah.
And you said that's the way for you to maybe break the ice even.
Yeah, well, it's evolved to that. To begin with, because I take my High Priestess role very seriously, and I'm teaching everyone all the time to how to enjoy and become a better companion to themselves and to others. My that had led to me exploring Oriental culture, because it's related to Oriental culture from the Firefly. So then that's kind of evolved gradually. Like, for example, I know how to do the Japanese tea ceremony in real life.
Did you study that?
I've learned to do that, yes. And I just kind of felt like if I was going to be a high priestess and teach people these things, then I ought to learn and put myself through things too, which has been helpful because as the community evolves, their needs have evolved, and so me having looked at things from different angles is really handy.
Why are people interested in the guild in Second Life? What do you think? I mean, why do they want to become companions? What compels someone, whoever it is, a retired judge? Tiny little anecdote, the first story that I did in the Machinima reportage in Second Life in 2007 was about the community of Neu-Freistadt, which is a role-playing community where they play a virtual democracy. So they have a city council, they have debates, they talk about before they build a bridge,
Yes.
and they have this democratic system, and it's part of the Confederation of Democratic Simulators. I think right now they have 3 sims,
Wonderful.
and they were role-playing that, and I found it fascinating. And I in that reportage, I contrasted that with at the time the presidential election where Hillary Clinton and Obama and Mark Warner had little posts in Second Life, little booths, but they just used it to like advertise what they were doing in real life. Versus the Confederation of Democratic Simulators were really there, and they were really role-playing this with all seriousness. And long story short, what I found out is that a lot of people in that community, not all of them, were retired public officials.
Right, yes.
But I found that hilarious because I was like, okay, now I worked 40, 50 years in city administration. I'm retired now.
Yeah.
What should I do with my life? No, I'm not going to go into painting. I'm not going to write a novel. I'm going to go in a virtual world and role-play my life once again.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's great,
That's
because a lot of
real
people don't really
content.
So I'm
want
not judging. I'm just
No, that's really
Because a lot of
wonderful.
people don't want to retire, do
No,
they?
no, not
yeah,
really.
it just gives them a way to continue.
Yeah, I mean, you have the energy. You don't have the energy to do the job in real life, but that doesn't mean your passion for it has gone away.
Yeah. But so then, do you know anything about the real life circumstances of people in the Companions Guild, or that?
Yeah, some of them. I mean, obviously, in Second Life, people share or don't share on varying degrees depending on who they are.
Yeah, from the total to the totally not. We have totally not people, don't we? And then I'm just blatantly wide open.
I think a lot of people.
It's just like
I
in
don't
real
care.
life.
And funnily enough, you know what? People don't refer to my real life much, even though it's there, because we're busy relating
Doing what we're doing in Second Life.
Yeah, so it
I
doesn't
think
make
one
much
of the
difference.
main things is companions is that actually they just want to be part of a community, because you might go to one of our companion houses and there might not seem to be anybody there, but we have a social group and we have a main group and we have lots of different rituals and it's but at the same time the classes are open, so people can kind of come and go as much as they like. They're not held to anything, but they are part of a community. So that means when they log on to Second Life, they are more likely to be able to meet people and hang out with people. On another level, people, because not all of them wish to become companions or even become companions. Some people are just part of the community. On another level, having spoken to my private class students most recently, a lot of them want to learn to control their mind a bit more, so that they can
Their mind.
so that they can have so that they can not
Practice
be obstructed.
mind control.
Yeah, themselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that they can, so that they don't, so that they can have more freedom in their life, and not be restricted by either mental problems or just strong emotions.
Well, you're talking
Is
about
that
emotional intelligence again, right?
Yes, emotional
You're talking about like impulse control,
Yes.
which is part of.
How'd you get all stickers of you?
So they want to develop emotional intelligence. Yeah. But the other aspect as well, the other answers that they sometimes give is that they want to be able to give and receive in Second Life. They want to be able to do that. They want to have a system where they can do that in a safe way and in a confident way.
It fascinates me because some people are very strict about separating real life and Second Life, and they put it also in their profile. Some people do that because when they are in a role playing, it destroys their enjoyment of that make believe.
This is one thing that's great about role play, though, because, like, for example, when we sit down and we do the meditation at the beginning of class, I'm not checking to make sure that everybody is doing meditation. They can be doing whatever they want to do.
Right,
They're just so they're going to sit there.
They can do the dishes while their avatar is doing.
Bathroom break.
Yeah. But you can say I'm role playing, so that means also I don't have to worry about what their real life motivation is and this, that, and the other. I just take what they say as read. So they say. So the only time, for example, there was one time I had to refuse to teach someone because she actually said to me directly, "While you're leading the meditation, I'll go and make my breakfast," and I couldn't cope with that. I was just like, either say, can we pause because I need my breakfast, or role play that you're doing the meditation and go and get your breakfast, but don't tell me about it. It was a bit like it made the fourth wall all hazy, and I was just I couldn't cope with that.
I can totally understand that.
Well, and also it's just rude, isn't it? It's just like I'm blatantly going to not do what we're supposed to be doing, which you didn't have to say.
It's hard.
Yeah. That's like in the classroom. But that leads me to a question now, moving forward to virtual reality and real-time tracking of, for example, arms. And last time I wanted to take a photo of my avatar in Sansar with my arms up like this, and I had to pose, of course, here with the hand controls, with the Oculus Rift controllers, and then my arms got really numb, and my friend was taking the picture, and then I said, that's why I really like Second Life. I can pose a certain way, and I don't have to actually mimic it in the physical world. What do you think? I'm going to make the round briefly at the end of this program. What do you think going forward with virtual reality, which is primarily meant to define the use of additional hardware to interface with the world, so headsets and trackers and stuff like that? Is that an attractive proposition to you? Do you see problems? Do you see this as something that will not work for the disabled community as a whole, maybe, or what do you think?
I think the thing is with technology is you have to have a mind that can comprehend it, and I think that I'm an emotional intelligence geek. And from that perspective, there may be people who haven't got the emotional intelligence to be able to incorporate new technology into what they already do. They need to actually stay with what they're already doing and work on their emotional intelligence first before they take something new on. And I think that would be one of the reasons why I would find the tech difficult to deal with, is because I'm already, as an epileptic, I already get emotionally and sort of physically overwhelmed by things already. So adding something that I didn't request, I wouldn't see much point in that.
I would agree with you 100% that as the human race as a whole, we're not close at all to any type of level of emotional intelligence to even understand what complete immersion with headsets and trackers and full body tracking will do to us.
No,
we're not ready.
We certainly don't have any trained counsellors.
We have no coping mechanism
in the real world
Yeah.
to help us cope with any side effects of that yet.
Yeah.
Like if you had a real problem that developed as a result, who would you go to? Because you're practicing that in your own house.
That's not a problem because on the box that when you buy the Oculus Rift, it says company not liable for.
Oh yeah, of course,
if you,
yes. I see.
Become an ex-murderer, for example.
Yeah, well, I passed to
just
Steve.
a random example.
Passed to Beeflin.
Beeflin, what do you think?
Well, I think that it's if you imagine all that gear working really well, then it's
let's
going
stipulate
to,
that first. But I mean, right now it's kind of.
We're not
clunky.
talking about it's a bit crappy, but people are settled in the near future. What it's going to present is something which is again a facsimile of reality. So then it's going to appear to be reality. It's going to be treated as reality, and that to me makes it very much not special and not a tool. It's just a very simple communications device, really. I mean, it's a way of being in a different place. Okay, you can use it in virtual environments, but you are going to be behaving like your body is somewhere and real stuff is there. And that is obviously going to have some fun. It's going, it might be huge fun, but to me, I don't find it as special as the subtlety of having a tool which you feel you have got in your hands, and you can apply it in a subtle way without losing track of everything else that you have with you. I mean, my Second Life experience is, okay, I have as much immersion as there is and as much as I want. At the same time, I have access to my web browser, I can play music, I've got a room around me with other things to do that are part of my mind, part of my life. There's the door, the corridor, then there's the street I'm in, an environment which is actually very rich, and the virtuality of it is one of the components, and I am allowed to have some, not exactly control, because I'm only controlling my part, everybody else is controlling their part, but I feel it has a subtlety, and because limited things are things, unlimited things are not things, and I think the more unlimited the full virtual experience is, the more it'll be ordinary. And I don't find Second Life in danger of being ordinary. It's odd, the oddity, and the coping with the oddity, and coping with the limits, and coping with the particular vision of the way that it's put together and the time in history it was invented, and most of all, finding out what it does to people, which is rather extraordinary mentally. I don't think I'm going to see that in big virtual reality. I think people are going to behave in an ordinary way in that.
That's almost the same as is true with art or music. If there is absolutely no limits and no limitation, it becomes just blah. You need to have a framework within you create.
Look back at the promotional literature for the first synthesizers. When the Moog synthesizers were first marketed, they were marketed as, you can make any sound. You can make the sound of any instrument of the orchestra, any instrument from the rock band, any instrument from the jazz band, and you can create your own sounds, your own instruments, new sounds. Now, after the technology's matured, what have we got? The synthesizer is mostly not used to replace orchestras, except in a very slavish way to save having to pay orchestra players. It's not particularly used to replace the other band instruments because they're still there. And where are the new sounds? There are about 5 or 6 of them, and they're in electronic dance music, and they've become standardized. So the synthesizer has actually taken work away from everybody else and then wasted its opportunity. That's typical of something that's supposed to be the great universal tool that'll do anything. Is it ends up with a niche? Everything ends up with a niche.
Very good point. I totally don't disagree. I just want to point out episode 43 with Noise Pap, who I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of euros he spent on his modular synthesizer, which takes his entire house took over. So he got into an obsession buying these components and putting them together and buying cables, and that's all he does. No, he does more. But this is such an important point, and I agree with you. But sometimes I feel that the immersion, I mean, you said something I heard before, that one thing about which makes Second Life so powerful vis-a-vis the headsets is that I'm not excluded from everything, and some people even said I cannot afford to be excluded from it, but I still want to enjoy this
because there's a lot of
alternate
people
world.
who are
Right,
they have to say, be right back, I've got to check
Yes,
the kids.
they have
constant
Exactly.
communication between two realities, and I don't think you get that without a computer, and I don't think you get it in an Oculus. I think you're either virtual or real. And
But I
think
have to say-
we have a balance.
But I have to say that when we do this Sansar Atlas hopping, and I'm in there, and actually I had a opening party in Sansar in the basement that we built, and I was in there for 3.5 hours, which I've never done before. And it was a housewarming party, and there were maybe 30 people or so, and it was incredible. And the full immersion factor, or full meaning as much as we can do right now. We don't know where technology goes. Maybe we'll have implants at some point. But it was powerful, and the fact that I looked around and I had nothing, and I was completely transported into this world was pretty cool. So,
Would it have been the same experience if all those people had just flown to be together in that room, which was real? And there was no Oculus. There was a real event with the real room and the real people actually there. Was it similar to that, or was there anything special about the Sansar experience?
Now that you're saying this, my Second Life Res Day party 2 years ago in the Vortex Club on Escapades, or Whippersnapper, I mean, in between, where it was only on the screen, Second Life actually was equally powerful. So what you're saying made me think that while I just said, oh, this was immensely powerful because I was completely transported because of the Oculus, actually it is not true. Why was it powerful? Because my friends showed up.
Mm-hmm.
My friends showed up, and they stayed with me, and we had conversations. And the same was true at the Res Day party 2 years ago, where all these people showed up, and it made me feel like really good.
Yeah.
So
It's like if you were.
in other words, the technology overlay was almost not necessary. Maybe.
It's in a way, it's a bit like I'm hearing people say, I went to the shops in town the other day, and the new experience of shopping was really, really amazing. Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, well, what was so amazing about it? And they say, my friend gave me a lift in a Veyron. That was what was amazing. The shops were the same, but the transport was just whizzy, You see what I mean? I mean, I'm not saying there's not a use for that, because obviously getting people together who are not geographically together, it's not only a great thing to be able to do, but it saves a lot of fuel and time.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's well worth doing.
But we're discussing.
But whether it's really whizzy and special, or whether it's just very practical and nice in an ordinary way, that's a different question.
But the big question is the added the headsets and the added immersion and the obsession on the tech specs. Like, I'm in forums where people discuss this. Oh, the resolution of the Microsoft headset is this much, and it reminds me of in the musical world where people endlessly discuss the gear specs.
Yeah.
And they haven't played one note.
Yeah.
And they discuss. Oh, this. With bass, I don't know, this SWR amp has this extra knob, and then I don't know.
In recording,
in
it's
recording,
insane.
I
They
think-
talk,
I think
are you
recording
recording in
engineers- yes.
96 kilohertz? Are you recording in 192 kilohertz? Because we must track
currently
down
I'm
the
recording
last.
it only in 48.
we
which
must
is really-
track down the last missing bit. And it's like, dude, what got you into this? What was it? And they go, oh well, I like sitting on the dock of the bay. You're like, that was recorded through one valve onto a piece of plastic tape. What are you talking about? There's so many inventions that are almost not worth having. Because it's just the inventing and people who want to sell and who love it.
Dear listeners, this is wonderful, and just as a just to make it clear, I love Sansar, I love 114 Harvest in my basement, and you're welcome anytime, and we can all coexist. But I think we're all in agreement that the specialness of Second Life. The secret sauce is so magical, and people are trying to recreate it, or maybe or improve on it. It's the Coke recipe. It's the initial Coca-Cola recipe.
They're like, actually, I prefer the classic. They'll have to resell the classic. Yeah.
Although
I'm not saying that Sansa is cherry cola. I'm not saying
No.
All right, we're not saying that.
If I had the right equipment for Sansa a few years in the future, I can see myself completely depending on it for something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
For something that I do, or many things that I do, I can see it being, universally popular, regarded as something that changed the world and made it a much better place.
Or imagine you had a modular synthesizer that costs absolutely nothing.
But it's never going to be the same as playing a hand of poker, because that's just so sweet. It's never going to be the same as a simple game with simple. It's like the modern computer games, right? The full-on military reality where you're in a real war. How is that better than Gauntlet? Gauntlet was just sweet. It was like chess. Chess is sweet. They're not realistic.
Misha looks at it like, you guys are so old, I can't believe it. Okay, Misha, you have the last word.
I'm starting to sound like Giles in Buffy. I know. Real books with lovely leather covers.
No, but I still read books. I mean, I read paper books. See, there's another thing. I say this almost on every show. I don't have a Kindle. I don't have a digital reading device. I read paper books, and the simple reason is it's an act of commitment to me, where I intentionally single task. It's a meditative act. I'm committing to this book right now, and other people go, hey, I got 1,000 books on my Kindle.
Yeah.
Look at that. No, it's like on the surface. No, I want to go deep. I want to have a relationship with the book. The tactile, the smell of the book.
Smell and touch again.
We are Giles.
Now I'm talking like the Second Life detractors. How can you be in Second Life? It doesn't even smell like anything. Can't even touch it. Your last words, Misha. What do you think? Like, I want to go home.
Well, honestly, I've lost track of the question.
That's life. That's real life and Second Life.
Oculus. How good is that?
I think.
Misha's not even here with us right now. Look, she has wandered off, and that's possible without the Oculus. You don't need any digital devices.
You just need an imagination, really.
Yeah, you can be in your head. It's like the cheapest Oculus of all.
I think it's a really interesting thing that it's being made, and it can be really. It could be a really good tool for some things, but it also could be really dangerous. So.
Yeah. My UPS driver once said when I showed him the Oculus I had to ship to Boston, Amy, if you're listening, that was yours. And I asked him, do you know what this is? And he goes, I was like, no. Oh, it's like a virtual reality headset. You put it on and you're in different worlds. And he goes like, And I go like, yeah, but you can do cool things. Physically disabled people can walk again. And I was like, like this. And then I said, so what do you think? And he goes, I think it's potentially interesting, but I think given the track record of humanity, we're going to use it for really stupid stuff. And
yeah, that's what I think too.
It's not very optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
it just depends on the creators and who's the people who are really into that and what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. That's your job, Misha, because we're going to be under the ground when that happens.
Some people will have will make really amazing things with it, and some people will just make more shooter games. I've already seen quite a few of those.
Yeah, me too, for some reason. It's good though, because then people aim better.
Somebody's bound to
that's really cynical.
At some point, gloves
people know I'm
that have the pressure of physical objects so they place a physical object and you grip it, so you'll be able to strangle people and stab them and kick them and feel it.
That sounds awesome.
They'll do that. Yeah, but people who play shooter games will want that. They want a safe version of being as violent as they want to be, because that's what everybody loves. All the boys want to do that.
I do like killing orcs occasionally.
Oh yeah, we do have.
But I tend to do that on a PlayStation.
Yeah, it's a very classic
game.
I
thought I'm this pacifist hippie town, and there you go. Joe, we'll have you, Joe, back next week. Joe Yardley always says, I'm just a hippie on the outside, and the inside I'm Jack Bauer from 24, and I want to mow down terrorists. On that fabulous note, thank you very much. This has been the Drax Files Radio Hour without Joe Yardley. She'll be back next week. And have a great weekend, guys. Bye.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Time Portal, SL Artist, Warbug, Bay City You Know for Kids, 01 Heavy Industries Corporation, Extraordinary, Ionic, Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Botanical, Strawberry Sing, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, Caravel Design, The Cube Republic, What Next, Landscapes Unlimited, Fallen Gods Incorporated, and Death Row Designs. Thumbnail by Justin Esparza. Contact the show via Skype, Draxfiles, Avatar Draxfiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.